EDAD 7314 Seminar, a course reflection on the Education Summer Institute in Washington, D.C. This seminar provided a glimpse into the role of education at the federal level and those who advocate for education. Since education is delegated to the states, the federal government has a limited role. In 2017, the Department of Education was issued an executive order to investigate efficiency to reduce the federal footprint. Yet politics and policy remain at the helm, and advocacy groups for the different sectors of education push against the politics of expedience and towards equity in education. In conjunction with advocacy groups are those who are raising up the next generation of our nation's leaders, leaders who will step up and be the next set of problem solvers. In this course reflection, I will share the topics that most influence my understanding of education on the federal level. While I recognize that education is the primary responsibility of the states, the federal government plays a large role in assuring equity for America's disadvantaged and high-needs students. Furthermore, I will address the common goals of educational institutions in leadership development and relationship building. In this course reflection, I will share the topics that most influence my understanding of education on the federal level. While I recognize that education is the primary responsibility of the state, the federal government plays a large role in assuring equity for America's disadvantaged and high-needs students. Furthermore, I will address the common goals of the educational institutions in leadership development and relationship building. One of the main goals of each institution is leadership development. Although each approached leadership development in different ways, the common goal was clearly expressed by Dr. John Yeager: have a plan to develop leaders and then identify the resources to do it. The National Defense University, the Archer Center, the American Association of Community Colleges, and the American Association of State Colleges and Universities each had a plan to develop leaders. The NDU intentionally incorporated leadership development into their curriculum, while the Archer Center provided students with experiential leadership opportunities through internships and policy writing. The AACC and the AASCU both included leadership development in their mission statements and conducted president and CEO academies to develop potential leaders in higher education. Furthermore, since university presidents are older and serving fewer years, it is imperative that they are provided with the professional development that enables them to foster new leaders who will contribute to the educational innovation. Developing leaders is a necessity to carry on the work of advocacy and innovation on the federal level, as well as the institution in which they serve. During our time at AASCU, Mr. Nassirian explained that there are two types of groups in D.C. Political groups who ask the question, what is a politically palpable idea that will solve the problem? And public policy groups who ask, what is the problem we are going to solve? According to Mr. Nassirian, politics and public policy are like two waves that rarely cross, but when they do, we push. After listening to groups such as the Learning Policy Institute and the AACC, I realized that advocacy is about helping policymakers make informed decisions about education by providing high-quality research from various sectors, such as access to community colleges for low-income students, policy related to teacher quality and retention, equitable resources and access issues, and teacher preparation programs. Advocates must be bipartisan, which explains why the Heritage Foundation differs from other institutes, because their purpose, according to one of the representatives, is to influence the vote and serve as a think tank, especially as it relates to school choice, something that I do not agree with. Based on the book Politics in America, the Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank, heavily relied on by conservative politicians and presidents, and steeped in American exceptionalism. Although I do not agree with the elitism that comes from such a viewpoint, I did welcome the opportunity to hear from them directly. I felt like the Heritage Foundation consisted of members who were born with a silver spoon in their mouths and not necessarily connected to the true needs of public education, even as it related to school choice. One of the most informative advocacy groups was the Baptist Joint Commission. I so appreciated their mission statement, Faith, Freedom for All. Their stance that we can advocate for something and still be against it was honestly quite surprising and refreshing, since the word Baptist was in their name. I expected them to be more close minded and more closely aligned with the Heritage Foundation, but to my surprise, they were willing to advocate and disagree at the same time, and their headquarters served as a common ground for opposing groups to work toward a compromise. Minus the Heritage Foundation, I felt like the Learning Policy Institute, the BJC, the American Association of Community Colleges, focused more on coming to the table to find out what could be agreed upon rather than focusing on areas of disagreement. According to a statistic from the Learning Policy Institute, almost 1.5 million children are educated in the 47 most fiscally disadvantaged school districts across the states. A common strand running through all the advocacy groups, minus the Heritage Foundation, was the desire for equity among students. Even Ruth Ryder stated the federal government wants to protect the rights of children who are disadvantaged. I did find it interesting that while the focus of the federal government was to protect the rights of children who are disadvantaged, that one of the most challenging issues is trying to understand the new political leaders' view of equity in education and implementing that view while continuing to be bipartisan. As Ms. Ryder stated, when you sign up for this job, you sign up to support whoever is in office regardless of your own political beliefs. Ultimately, the goal of advocacy groups was to give themselves away for the greater good of education and to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, namely children who are disadvantaged. As Martin Luther King stated, an individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. My time in D.C. revealed that there are many opportunities to rise above individualistic concerns and to speak on behalf of the broader concerns of all humanity, including the education of children.